Overall, I do not recommend Hercules. He's just a very awkward card with a weird stat line, with an ability that doesn't synergize super well at the cost he has for what move wants to do. His one saving grace is he might be buffed in the future, but even that is more of a hit and miss, and even that I don't think will generally make him be enough to compete with some of the other decks we have in the meta. So another dud for move. How you doing? So today we are talking about Hercules, the most original Marvel concept ever, and we're talking about how it's as a game, its abilities. Do I think he's good or not? We'll find out soon. But yeah, it should be a good one if you bought Hercules. If you didn't, this should be a good one if you didn't buy Hercules. Okay. So here we have Hercules. I still don't understand why he's in the Marvel Universe, but whatever. So he's a 4 energy 6 power card with the first time another card moves here each turn, move it to another location. So he's a move synergy card. I'm not the biggest fan of move archetype just because there really hasn't been any historically good move based decks that have been like high meta. So it's usually more of a niche role. There are some like outlier. Silky Smooth has move cards in it, even though it's like not really a move deck. But there's definitely not a big kind of flexibility to move that people really want to use it, or it performs super well in specific areas like tournaments and things like that. So here we do have a dedicated move card. Its stat line is very similar to Spider-Man 2066, I believe. So just a synergy with another card that I didn't really like. I thought that for a move deck, turn 4 is really where you want your big payoff. Either you're going to be moving already during that turn, or you're going to be playing cards that really have big potential and or probably can move themselves, right? Phoenix is one. Ghost Spider, all the move are generating cards are also where you really start to see them come out in turn 4. So in order to have a turn 4 move card, it has to be like really crazy or be able to do that kind of function by itself. Now Hercules potentially can do that function, but it's a card that also requires extra activators for it to work. So you play it down, it doesn't do anything. Cards that don't do anything by themselves really struggle to be good because it means it needs more pieces to be consistent, right? And when you are playing this deck or this game, you only have your 12 cards, but if you don't draw the right cards, it's going to do nothing for you, right? So it just opens up this like RNG potential that really move deck doesn't need more of. It doesn't need more RNG potential when you add this on top. On top of that, like just the 4/6 stat line is not very good, honestly, right? Very easily people can play 4/10, 4/9, so anytime you're playing something like a 4/6, you're already behind, right? You have to have the stat line like recover you 3 power, 4 power or more just to be on even footing with like a normal play. And then for it to be worth it, it has to generate you like 12 power or more, like just for it to be considered like a good card. So it doesn't do that easily, it doesn't do that consistently. Obviously you kind of know what I'm talking about, how I'm going to rate the card, but I'm just kind of listing some of the problems. Another issue is just like when you are trying to play with this, your opponents actually have ways to mess with this synergy. And also, the synergy isn't very good. So, let's say the opponent has a Jeff, which is a very common card. They can just move into it and waste a move for that turn. And if you need Hercules move in a critical position, the fact that your opponent can just like mess with it, it's like so bad. Especially if you snapped or something, you have a good hand and you snap and they play Jeff. It's like I maybe time to go. So there's just a lot of problems with it, and you can only do it once per turn. Obviously, this is to reduce the potential of like infinite combos where you have like multiple Hercules and they're moving into another move, into another move, into another move, into another move, right? Like that could happen with Sinister London, things like that, right? So they're trying not to have that scenario come up, but because they have that caveat, it's just not very high potential for some of the move archetypes that you'd love to see, especially for a 4-cost card. So overall, let's get to it, right? I'm not recommending this card at all. I just think there's a lot of problems with it. Its stat line's awkward. 4/6, if you're playing a move synergy card on 4, it has to do something crazy generally, and it doesn't do something crazy. And it's really only playable in a move archetype. I really don't see you ever playing a card like this in a random deck. It's not a good stuff card, it's good stat card. It doesn't have that like you play wherever, Jeff level quality. It has to be in a deck where moving matters. So you're kind of limited in the archetypes you can really play with this. Your opponent can mess with the ability, which is just like a problem generally, and locations can mess with the ability, right? It's not like your opponent is the only thing that can do it. Locations can do it too. It's not a very flexible card in that it's a 4-cost card, and then if you play this, you have to play other moves cards, and they have to be able to move in a way where Hercules makes it matter, right? So there's only a few cards that really fit that niche. So it's not really something you can just splash into any move archetype and it's better. It has to fit into Hercules' game plan. The one caveat is that it's so bad, in my opinion, that it's likely to get buffed. That's like the only like good thing. The only like, oh, if you really want to get it, probably if you wait a while, it'll get buffed. But I would say like maybe it'd be a 3-cost card or something like that. The issue I have though is there's a lot of good 3-cost move cards in my opinion. So you're kind of fighting with other cards that are already like quite good, right? I will say like probably Hercules would probably be the best of the 3 costs, but you are like it is a card, like it is a stat line where even at 3 there are other good cards that you could play into it, and people are playing Kingpin, people are playing Craven, right? There's already other good synergies that you're already following up on, so it's like you need Hercules to do well if that is the archetype you're trying to play. So it's just a weird card. I don't really recommend. I do wonder how they're gonna buff it and how that's going to change things, if it changes things at all. I'm of the opinion that even if it gets buffed, it still won't see that heavy play because you have to compete with all the decks in the meta. And right now, Blob is like the most, like, is one of the most, like, just stat heavy decks. And if you can't beat the stats, then you can't compete. And I don't even think if you buff Hercules, he'll be able to compete with like a Blob 25 power dropping. So it's just a bad card. Anyways, with all that out of the way, let's go into some of the more fun stuff. I feel bad for the card. So we can talk about the spotlights it's in, and we did kind of also not continue with the happiness here, where Hercules Spotlight isn't very good, just because it's next to a card that got significantly nerfed and is not as prevalent anymore, and then a card that's never really seen play at all, right, with Howard and Werewolf. So it's just not next to good cards that make it enticing. If you want Howard, sure. If you want Werewolf, sure, right? But in terms of, is this a good Spotlight? In my opinion, I don't think so. I just think it's a spotlight you can skip completely, and you probably won't even remember that you skipped it. It's not really gonna tickle your fancy or anything like that. And then Howard is a Series 4 now. If you really, really want it, you could buy it with tokens. So it's really like you want Werewolf, and if you didn't have Werewolf already, you've missed a window to really be abusing Werewolf. The window has passed, so there's really not anything jumping for this particular spotlight, so you can feel free to skip it. Now, I always have decks for the new cards. Just in case you wanted to play with the card, you wanted to see how it's good, I do have some suggestions. First one is just kind of a standard move deck, nothing really weird. You do also play Spider-Man 2099 and Hercules. I mean, those are like the two synergies, and you're hoping that it's good enough. Now, the problem is like it's just awkward, right? In terms of like your activators, you really have to draw super well. And honestly, Hercules is not carrying this deck. It's more like Dagger and Human Torch if it doesn't die, which a lot of people are not playing Killmonger, so probably Human Torch is probably pretty safe. But yeah, it's probably Dagger, Human Torch. It's really, and Vulture really carrying you. But sometimes 2099 can maybe kill something important, and Hercules does have a lot of power if you can hit it with Vulture, hit it with Torch, hit it with Dagger. That's a lot of power. So there's definitely some synergies there, but this is kind of the generic move deck. Maybe something to test out the Hercules card and see if it is something you want to continue playing with. Next up, we have like a Silky Smooth variant. This one's a little bit more memey because we are running Stegron, Arrow, Juggernaut. We are running all of the like the memeier move cards, but Kraven Kingpin just does a lot, and that's the reason why you're playing these, because you want to play both Kraven and Kingpin and just set up this window where you can just like pump, put everything into that Kraven Kingpin lane and have this like unlosable lane, or you could split them up if you want to just have more chances to hit activators. So there's just a lot here that works for you. So it's just a kind of a very heavy Silky Smooth, but with the introduction of Kingpin, you really focus on that secondary Kingpin aspect and do a lot with that. So that's kind of the idea with this particular list. Next up, we have Phoenix Force deck. So this is just a Phoenix Force deck using Hercules. So since Phoenix Force and Hercules kind of work together, you can just have that Phoenix Force activation and then move it to Hercules. Hercules will move it again, right? So if you're hitting Human Torch in particular, that's going to be some crazy numbers, right? Like double move with Human Torch. It just, that's just like so much power. You're vomiting all over the place. Multiple Man also works, but it's not the same, in my opinion, right? It's not the same level of disgustingness that Human Torch will be. So you could definitely do that as well. But generally, this is more of a Human Torch, Hercules, Phoenix Force triple combo, where you're like, oh my god, this is insane, But whatever. That's the idea with this one. Now, the last one I do have is kind of the same realm, except you are really heavily invested inside Human Torch combo. So now you have the Living Tribunal just to kind of guarantee the win, right? If you have like 120 Human Torch, Living Tribunal, you're going to win, right? Like it's just so much power. So you're really investing into that full potential of power to just have it. You have magic as well to kind of delay the time so you can really keep popping off. So that's kind of the idea there, to just have this auto disgusting win potential. So definitely something you can do if you want, and could definitely work out. So that's kind of the idea there if you want to really dive deep into that wheelhouse. But overall, not the biggest fan of Hercules. Just think it's awkward. It's a 4/6, same style line as Spider-Man 2099, which also sees like no play. So I do think it's likely to get buffed. I did say that about Spider-Man 2066. So is it 2099 or 2060? Someone's mad at me right now because I said it wrong. 2099. I said 2066. So someone's mad at me because I did that. But I don't care. Anyways, same style line as that card. Hasn't seen any buffs, but Hercules probably likely to see some buffs just generally. So those are my thoughts on this card. What are your thoughts? I already know your thoughts anyways, but generally that's what we have for today. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one. Educated calling snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be impeccable.